for the hardest-hitting show in talk radio. The true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
And welcome to Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. My name is Darren Gibson, and I'm your co-host.
And I'm Katy Steele. I'm helping out today.
Yeah, and thanks for stopping in today, Katy. I really appreciate it, and you're going to be joining me next week as well while Jack continues his vacation across Eastern Europe. Lucky bum. He's been sending some really cool photos back. So if you're friends with him on Facebook, check out some of these photos that he's been posting. Just tremendous stuff. Before we get started with today's show, a couple of reminders that you can follow us on social media by going to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. You can follow us on Twitter at Southpaws Radio, and you can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/Southpaws Radio. And this week for our patrons, we have a very special treat, something I dug out of the archives. From February of 2015 to August of 2017, Southpaws had a sister radio show called Women Libs Radio. It aired locally in Grand Rapids. We syndicated for several months through Pacifica as well. I found the original pilot to sell the show to the radio station in Kentwood, whose initials we never use anymore. So that is actually up now for patrons exclusively. Nobody else has ever heard this episode. This has never been broadcast. So this is phenomenal stuff out of the vaults of Big D Entertainment. So again, patreon.com/Southpaws Radio will be how you can hear that and help out the show as well. You can listen to the show anytime you like at Spreaker.com or at the iTunes Store by doing a search under podcast for Southpaws. Find our logo and it'll take you right there. And, of course, you can listen to us on the Pacifica Radio Network on great stations including KCEI-FM 90.1, Taos, New Mexico. WRWK, Midlothian, Virginia, downloaded us most recently. And KZGM, Kabul, Missouri, and you can hear us every Monday night at 9 p.m. on Global Community Radio Channel 1. We're on right after Democracy Now!, so make sure you check us out. We have a new executive producer today, Jackson the Cat. We started the show, and he has just started staring at me intently, and now he's just kind of like, whatever you guys are doing, I don't care.
I think he's loving the radio life. I think this is the life for Jackson.
There we go. That sounds good. First, before we get into our story, I heard this, or I saw this on TV this morning. This was a piece that Richard Engel did for the Today Show this morning on NBC, and it has to do with China. China is looking to become a superpower. They feel that they already are. They're looking at strengthening their position and overtaking the United States. And one of the ways that they're doing it is through artificial intelligence. Well, something came up toward the end of this piece, and it talks about China's surveillance program. And I'll tell you what the tie-in is after you hear this. This runs about 1:52. This is some scary stuff, folks. Take a good listen. Again, this is Richard Engel reporting for NBC News.
China is also using artificial intelligence to build the ultimate surveillance state. Many of China's ubiquitous surveillance cameras feed into an AI system that can recognize faces, figure out your name, and alert authorities if you break the law. Even just crossing the street, you are always on camera. And if you jaywalk, you will be caught, shamed, and fined. China is rolling out a system to rank citizens with a social credit score. If your score gets too low, your access is restricted at places like train stations and airports. China is playing a long game, trying to dominate a technology that will allow it to monitor its population in unprecedented detail and become the 21st century superpower.
God, that's as awesome as it is kind of depressing there on a certain level, Richard. What is the social credit system, by the way?
So the social credit score is a program that they're rolling out across China where the state, based on a variety of data that they collect, assigns you a loyalty score, a social credit score based on how good of a person the state perceives you to be. And that number, if it drops below a certain threshold, you can't use the airport, you can't use the high-speed trains. It's also impacted by who you know. So if you hang out with other people who are low scorers, it brings your number down.
Guilt by association.
It has huge social ramifications.
Wow. And incredible to see, as you said, that the U.S. is consumed with its own business. China's just going around looking to be the next superpower.
They see this as an opportunity to spread their wings. They think they were a great superpower, and now they think it's time to reestablish their
Richard, thank you.
A loyalty score. Boy, that sounds like something you would get swiping a rewards card at a gas station.
Yeah.
This is some scary stuff. And you were telling me this morning before we started recording, this has been going on for a while.
Yeah, I remember reading about this at least a year or so ago, maybe longer. But it's the stuff that I'm hearing coming out of China recently just gets more and more terrifying between the boarding schools / concentration camps that they've got going on over there that are trying to eradicate Muslims. Child separation that seems comparable to what's happening here, but probably on a much worse scale because they're not, nobody's really allowed to talk about it, although they all are talking about how their kids are disappearing on them. Yeah, and when you think about having an administration that, dabbles in foreign governments and is sometimes friendlier with them than the people here, it's very concerning.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people listening to this are saying, well, this can never happen here in this country. Well, we've got some news for you out of Detroit that it is already happening. This was a story that was published by the World Socialist website. This is by Kevin Reed. It's dated July 9th. By the way, the World Socialist website puts out a tremendous podcast. Some Pacifica radio stations air that podcast. If you hear it on Pacifica, great. If your local Pacifica station is not airing the World Socialist website podcast, please ask them to do so. You will get more information and news there that's not published anywhere else. And it's scary stuff, but it's very informative. Again, this is Kevin Reed for the World Socialist website. The Detroit Board of Police Commissioners decided on June 29th to postpone a vote on the expansion of its use of camera and facial recognition technology amid growing public outrage over the system that has been in place since 2016. Now, I'm going to stop there for a second. We have talked about this program on this show. It's called Project Greenlight. And what happens, and we'll get into more details, is that businesses, homeowners who have surveillance cameras can sign up with the Detroit Police Department and have the video fed live into the Detroit Police Department. Let's continue here. The decision to delay the vote followed a report the previous day in the Detroit Metro Times that the core surveillance technology, which is scanning and recording the activity of everyone in the city within sight of its extensive camera network at all times, was purchased for $1 million and installed without any public review or discussion, let alone a vote of the Detroit City Council or the Police Commission. So they've been doing this, and they did it all on their own. They didn't get approval from any government agency to install this. Continuing, earlier reports in the Metro Times exposed the use of the high-definition video cameras and face-scanning software by the Detroit Police Department to identify and track the movements of individuals at parks, schools, immigration centers, gas stations, churches, abortion clinics, hotels, apartments, fast food restaurants, and addiction treatment centers. The article also said the police can identify people in real time using databases containing hundreds of thousands of photos, including mugshots, driver's licenses, and images scraped from social media. Now just think about that for a second. The Detroit Police Department is going on Facebook, they're going on Twitter, they're going on Instagram, they're going on Snapchat, and they're scraping photos off social media to put in this database. Additionally, the report said the system is integrated with Detroit police body cams and the city's highly touted, groundbreaking, and crime-fighting public-private community partnership called Project Greenlight Detroit. The program involves placing cameras at a cost of $4,000 per location that stream live video to the Detroit Police Department's real-time crime center at its downtown headquarters. A webpage at detroitmi.gov dedicated to the Project Greenlight hosts a map showing the location of nearly 600 surveillance cameras and says this infrastructure is for improving neighborhood safety, promoting the revitalization and growth of local businesses, and strengthening Detroit Police Department's efforts to deter, identify, and solve crime. Well, that might be what they're saying, but we feel otherwise here. Let me continue. After the extent of the surveillance was exposed and public anger began to rise, Detroit Police Chief James Craig hastily called a press conference on June 27th in an effort to downplay the invasive nature of the system and justify its implementation. Forced to admit that the artificial intelligence and biometric system had been in place for the past 2 years without review, Craig became irritated. When questioned by the media about its legality, he said, quote, "How come we never talk about the criminals?" End of quote. Chief Craig also said that the department had the right to detain people based on the technology because it constitutes reasonable suspicion that an individual identified by the system has committed a crime. When asked about it, Detroit Democratic Mayor Mike Duggan has repeatedly refused to comment, even though he was a key decision maker in signing the 3-year contract with DataWorks Plus. The firm, located in Greenville, South Carolina, provides technology to more than 1,000 law enforcement agencies in North America and New Zealand. So now we've got a private company that's selling this system to cities and saying, hey, we can help you deter crime.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is scary stuff, folks. DataWorks Plus specializes in hardware and software systems that integrate traditional police identification databases like mugshots and fingerprints with more advanced biometric data such as iris and tattoo matching and voice and facial recognition analytics. According to the Metro Times, the city contract also allows for thousands of hours of surveillance video to be shared with third-party law enforcement vendors. While the smaller circulation alternative weekly Metro Times has played a role in questioning the city's surveillance operation, the two major daily publications, the Detroit Free Press and the Detroit News, have engaged in a campaign to cover up the anti-democratic implications of the police program. Both papers have published multiple articles extolling the benefits of the system to the public and just recently began reporting on growing public concerns. Among these Free Press and News coverage have been public relations pieces promoting the crime-fighting potential of Project Greenlight and quoting Mayor Duggan and the president of the Black McDonald's Operators Association on how it will bring a safer environment and make criminals think twice before committing a crime at a participating business.
Oh, jeez. That totally, I mean, they're completely negating the facts that the system in general has already been proven to falsely identify people with dark pigment, like huge percentage more than it has been proven to do the same with people with lighter colored pigment. So all it can really do is continue to, disproportionately target black and brown people.
And that's something that we talked about several weeks ago on the show when we were discussing the Transportation Security Agency, the airport screeners, and their facial recognition technology. What was it? They put a picture of Oprah Winfrey into the system, and it came out, the results identified the picture as an African-American gentleman.
Oh, wow.
So
Sorry,
that
Oprah.
system has got some bad flaws in it. And like you said, it's toward people with darker skin. It's ridiculous.